The unexpected challenge. The Galactic Empire was vast. It stretched across the stars, with planets under its control and armies that could crush entire civilizations. For centuries, no one had dared to challenge their might. The Empire believed it was unstoppable. But far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, things were about to change. Admiral Vrax stood on the bridge of his warship, looking out at the endless expanse of space. His ship, the Dominion, was one of the Empire's finest, with weapons capable of destroying planets. Vrax had seen many worlds fall under the Empire's rule, but Earth was different. He had heard strange reports from his scouts. Humans, they were called, and the Empire knew little about them. "Admiral, we are entering Earth's orbit," the communications officer reported, his voice tense. "The planet's defenses are minimal, but they are showing some unusual activity." Vrax turned away from the view and fixed his gaze on the officer. Unusual activity? What kind of activity? The officer hesitated before replying. "They are preparing something. We're not sure what, but it's not like anything we've seen before." Vrax scoffed. "A primitive species trying to fight back. Ridiculous. Prepare the invasion fleet. Earth will fall like every other planet we've conquered. It's just a matter of time." He turned his attention to the massive display in front of him, where Earth's continents appeared. The blue planet seemed peaceful, unaware of the danger that was approaching. To the Empire, Earth was just another world to conquer, another victory to add to their list. But Vrax was cautious. He had learned not to underestimate an enemy, no matter how weak they seemed. His thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Emperor Callus, echoing through the communication system. "Admiral, your mission is clear. Earth's people are nothing but ants beneath our boot. Destroy their defenses, take their resources, and bring them to heel. This will be an easy victory." Vrax nodded, his confidence growing. He had never failed in a mission before, and this time would be no different. "Understood, Emperor. Earth will fall before nightfall." As the fleet descended toward the planet, the humans of Earth remained unaware of the impending invasion. But on the surface, something strange was happening. The people of Earth, despite their limited technology, were beginning to notice the massive ships hovering above them. The air was filled with tension as rumors spread across the globe. People gathered in the streets, looking up at the skies, their hearts filled with both fear and curiosity. In a small town in the United States, a young military strategist named Ethan stood in the crowded streets, watching the sky. He had always been an observer, someone who noticed the small details that others missed. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text message from his old friend Maya. "Ethan, did you see the ships? What do you think they are?" Ethan typed back quickly. "I don't know, but something's wrong. We need to prepare." The message was simple, but it was enough to get Maya's attention. She, too, had been watching the skies, and she knew that something was coming, something they couldn't ignore. Ethan's mind was already working on a plan. The humans had no chance against the Empire's advanced technology, but they had something that the Empire didn't expect: determination. Across the globe, in military command centers, leaders were scrambling to make sense of the situation. Earth's governments had no idea how to defend against the Empire's superior technology. They had never encountered anything like this before. The best they could do was send out warnings, hoping that the people would be prepared for what was coming. Back on the Empire's flagship, Vrax continued his preparations for the invasion. The fleet was ready to descend, their weapons primed. The invasion force would sweep through Earth's defenses, crush any resistance, and bring the planet to its knees. The humans would learn their place. But then something happened that Vrax did not expect. Earth's first line of defense, a small group of military fighters, took off into the air and began to fire at the Empire's ships. The attacks were small, insignificant, but they were relentless. The Empire's sensors couldn't make sense of it. These were primitive fighters, armed with weapons that couldn't possibly penetrate their shields, yet they were attacking with precision. Vrax's eyes narrowed. What is this? Are they crazy? The officer next to him studied the reports and then said, Admiral, they seem to be more organized than we expected. Their technology is rudimentary, but they're using it in unexpected ways. This might not be as easy as we thought. Vrax gritted his teeth. No matter. They will fall. Prepare the ground forces. The real battle is just beginning. Back on Earth, Ethan and Maya were working with military leaders, trying to understand how the humans could use their limited resources to stand up to the overwhelming power of the Empire. Ethan's mind raced with ideas. They might not have advanced weapons, but they had something more powerful, the ability to adapt. As the first wave of Empire forces descended on Earth, the tension grew. The humans had no idea what to expect, but they were ready to fight. In the next few hours, the fate of their world would be decided. Would they survive the invasion, or would the empires might crush them without mercy? Vrax was about to learn that Earth's greatest strength wasn't in their technology. It was in their unyielding will to fight for survival. The challenge had begun, and the Empire had no idea what it was up against. The first encounter. The Empire's invasion had begun. Massive ships from the Galactic Empire hovered over Earth's cities, casting long shadows over the land. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, dark, sleek, and bristling with advanced weaponry. The people of Earth stared up in awe, their hearts filled with dread as the first wave of soldiers prepared to land. Admiral Vrax watched the situation unfold from his command bridge, a satisfied smile on his face. His fleet had arrived without resistance, and Earth's defenses had barely made an impact. The humans had attempted to fight back with their primitive fighter jets, but their weapons had done little to slow the Empire's assault. We've arrived, Vrax said coldly, turning toward his officers. Prepare the landing parties. Begin the occupation. The troops of the Empire, clad in dark armor, prepared to invade the cities of Earth. They had superior technology, advanced weapons, and the tactical advantage. They expected a swift victory. After all, humanity was no match for the might of the Galactic Empire. But as the Empire's soldiers descended to the surface, they began to encounter something unexpected. In the city of New York, a group of soldiers was the first to land, their boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. The Empire's troops began to march through the streets, their weapons raised and ready. But instead of fear, they found something different, a human resistance. At first, it was only small groups, civilians and soldiers working together. Armed with little more than outdated weapons, they moved in the shadows, avoiding the Empire's heavily armored forces. It was a guerrilla war, a battle of surprise and stealth, and it caught the Empire off guard. The first skirmish began when a group of human fighters ambushed an Empire patrol. Their weapons, though primitive, were used with deadly accuracy. Explosives tore through the streets, and Empire soldiers were caught off guard by the sudden resistance. The humans moved fast, striking with precision before disappearing into the city again. Vrax's officers watched the footage in disbelief. How are they doing this? One officer asked. Their weapons shouldn't be capable of doing any real damage. Vrax stared at the screens, his face growing dark. It doesn't matter. We have the power to crush them. Deploy the heavy artillery. Bring down the shields and show them what real firepower looks like. But as the Empire's advanced weapons began to bombard the city, the humans didn't run in fear. Instead, they adapted. They had been studying the Empire's movements, learning their tactics, and using the environment to their advantage. In the chaos of the destruction, they found ways to sabotage the Empire's technology. A group of human soldiers, working alongside brilliant engineers, developed a system that temporarily disabled the Empire's shields, allowing the humans to strike at weak points in the invaders' equipment. A few Empire tanks exploded in fiery bursts as human forces used their own weaponry, stripped down and outdated though it was, to their advantage. Impossible, one of the Empire's commanders shouted. These humans, how are they managing to damage our equipment? We underestimated them. Vrax muttered under his breath, narrowing his eyes. This is no longer just a battle for control. It's a fight for survival. Back on Earth, the small pockets of resistance grew stronger. Ethan, who had been observing the events unfold from his headquarters, saw that the Empire's arrogance was their biggest weakness. They thought they could easily crush the humans, but they were wrong. Ethan, with his strategic mind, had a plan. He knew that the only way to defeat the Empire was to outthink them, to use Earth's strengths against their weaknesses. Ethan's message spread quickly among the human resistance. They began to communicate in ways that the Empire couldn't understand, using encrypted channels and shifting tactics faster than the invaders could adapt. The humans started to work as one unified force, their disparate groups coordinating strikes and attacks across the globe. One key moment came in London, where human forces trapped a large number of Empire soldiers in a narrow street. The humans, using makeshift weapons and improvised barricades, launched a surprise attack. The Empire troops found themselves outnumbered and caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse. For the first time, Vrax's confidence began to falter. His soldiers were still powerful, yes, but Earth's defenders were becoming more skilled by the day. The tide was slowly shifting, and the Empire was realizing that they had underestimated the humans' resilience. Meanwhile, on the ground, Maya, Ethan's old friend, was helping lead a group of resistance fighters. She had never been a soldier, but her sharp mind and quick thinking made her invaluable. She worked closely with Ethan, setting up strategies that confused and delayed the Empire's forces. They knew they couldn't win by brute strength alone, but if they could buy enough time, they might just have a chance to develop something that could change the course of the war. The Empire is too strong, Maya said during one of their strategy meetings. How long can we keep this up? Ethan didn't answer right away. He was staring at a map, tracing the lines of Empire occupation with his finger. As long as we can, he said quietly. The Empire has one big weakness. They think they know everything. They think we're just primitive creatures, but they don't understand how fast we can adapt. Maya looked at him, a hint of hope rising in her chest. So you think we can win? Ethan smiled. I think we can show them that Earth's greatest strength isn't in our weapons. It's in our ability to think, to fight smart, and to never give up. The humans had only just begun their fight, but already the first cracks were forming in the Empire's armor. The invaders had underestimated humanity. And now, Earth was showing them just how dangerous that mistake could be. Vrax wasn't prepared for what was coming next. The humans were ready to do whatever it took to defend their world, and the Empire was about to learn that this fight was far from over. The tide begins to turn. The Empire's forces had once believed they would sweep across Earth with ease, but as weeks passed, the once confident invaders were beginning to feel the weight of unexpected resistance. Humans, far from the helpless, primitive beings the Empire had assumed them to be, had shown a relentless ability to adapt. With every attack, they learned, improved, and struck back with surprising ingenuity. The tide of battle was slowly turning in humanity's favor. Admiral Vrax paced the command bridge of the Dominion, his mind racing. Earth's resistance was not only surviving, it was growing stronger. The humans had managed to develop ways to weaken the Empire's technology, a feat that had baffled his engineers. His forces had been forced to retreat more than once, a concept that was both humiliating and concerning for the Galactic Empire. Admiral, the humans, they've adapted, one of Vrax's officers reported. Our shields are less effective against their new weaponry. We've suffered damage to several key ships. Vrax clenched his fists. How? How are they managing this? His mind raced back to the first few days of the invasion, when he had believed the humans would fall without a fight. What was happening now? Why were they learning so quickly? They're using our own tactics against us, the officer continued. We've analyzed their attacks, and they've been systematically targeting our weak points. It's like they know exactly where to strike. Vrax turned toward the view of Earth, his gaze hardening. I've underestimated them. I won't make that mistake again. Deploy the war machines. We'll crush them once and for all. But on Earth, something incredible was happening. The humans were beginning to develop a sense of unity, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Resistance groups, once scattered and disorganized, were now working together, coordinating strikes with precision. They had begun to understand the Empire's movements, anticipate their strategies, and fight back more effectively. Ethan and Maya had been at the heart of this change. They had spent countless hours communicating with leaders across the world, sharing information, and working on ways to disrupt the Empire's operations. And they had discovered something extraordinary, a way to use the Empire's own technology against them. It had started as a theory, a hunch that the Empire's ships and weapons were more vulnerable than they appeared. With the help of a team of brilliant human engineers, they had managed to build a device capable of hacking into the Empire's communications and targeting systems. The device was crude by the Empire's standards, but it was enough to cause significant disruptions. One morning, as the Empire's fleet descended over Europe, Ethan's team launched their first strike. They had planted the device on a captured Empire ship, using it to infiltrate the fleet's command network. The resulting chaos among the invaders was immediate. The Empire's coordination fell apart. Their ships turned on each other, and their weapons systems malfunctioned. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. In a hidden command center deep beneath the Earth's surface, Ethan stood, watching the screens as reports flooded in. The humans had successfully neutralized an entire fleet of Empire warships, not with strength, but with strategy. For the first time, Vrax's forces were on the defensive. "We're doing it," Maya whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're falling apart." Ethan nodded, his expression hard. "This is just the beginning. We need to keep pushing. The more we disrupt them, the more they'll panic. And that's when we'll strike." Back on the Empire's flagship, Vrax was livid. His once pristine plan was unraveling before his eyes. The humans had crippled his forces with a single, unexpected strike. The humans had no chance of defeating the Empire in a direct confrontation, but they were proving to be dangerous in ways that Vrax hadn't anticipated. "Admiral, we've detected a new wave of human fighters," an officer reported, shaking. They're using a new form of attack. It's like they're coordinating with each other across the globe." Vrax's mind raced. The humans were learning faster than he could adapt. They weren't just fighting back. They were becoming more organized, more resourceful. The Empire had always prided itself on its ability to crush weak civilizations with overwhelming power, but Earth's defenders had something the Empire had never encountered before: the will to survive. "Send out the heavy artillery," Vrax ordered. "We need to break their spirit. Show them what happens when they challenge the might of the Empire." But it was too late. The humans were no longer afraid. They had seen the Empire's power, and rather than cowering in fear, they had found the strength to stand and fight. And in that fight, they were beginning to find hope. In cities across the world, human forces were launching coordinated attacks on the Empire's supply lines. They targeted key infrastructure, fuel stations, weapon depots, and communication hubs. Each strike sent a ripple of chaos through the Empire's forces. The once impenetrable war machines of the Empire were now vulnerable, and the humans were exploiting every weakness. Meanwhile, Ethan and Maya had begun to rally more resistance groups. Word spread fast about their victories, and soon, people from every corner of the globe were joining the fight. Ordinary humans, farmers, scientists, doctors, were picking up weapons and learning to fight. They had come together, united by a single purpose: to protect their world. As the days went by, the resistance grew stronger. Vrax's forces were slowly being pushed back, and with every victory, the humans grew bolder. They knew that their fight was far from over, but they also knew that they were no longer powerless against the Empire. They had taken the first steps toward victory, and they weren't going to stop until the Empire was defeated. The tide had begun to turn. The Empire was no longer the unstoppable force it once was, and the humans were showing the invaders that they had underestimated the power of Earth. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and the Empire was in for a rude awakening. The Empire's growing desperation. The Galactic Empire had never encountered anything like this. Resistance had always been a part of their conquest strategy, but nothing had ever lasted this long. Nothing had ever been this relentless. Vrax's once pristine invasion plan had been derailed. What should have been a simple and overwhelming victory was now transforming into an unpredictable struggle. The Empire's response, increasingly erratic and harsh, was starting to reveal their desperation. In the depths of the Dominion, Vrax was seated in his command chair, his fingers tapping nervously on the armrest. The screens before him flashed reports of increasing resistance activities across Earth. No matter where he sent his forces, human fighters were there, already planning their next move. "Admiral, the humans have intercepted another of our supply shipments," one of his officers reported, his voice shaky. "They're attacking our command centers with surgical precision. It's like they're always one step ahead." Vrax slammed his fist onto the table, a sharp crack of anger echoing through the bridge. "How are they doing this? How are they so coordinated? Our intelligence indicated they were primitive." The officer hesitated. "They'd been able to reverse engineer some of our technology, sir, and they're communicating in ways that we can't trace." The Empire had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness. These humans, who had once been thought to possess nothing but a few outdated weapons, were now wielding advanced technology with remarkable expertise. They had cracked the Empire's encryption codes and were using the very weapons meant to suppress them against their invaders. "The humans are smarter than we thought," Vrax muttered, his mind racing. "They're fighting with the same tactics we use. This won't be over quickly. I need to bring in more forces. We'll take out their communications. Without that, they'll crumble." But even as Vrax made his plans, Earth's resistance was far from crumbling. Ethan, now an experienced strategist, had been observing the Empire's movements with growing concern. He had seen firsthand how the Empire had begun to react to their growing power. It was clear to him that the invaders were getting desperate. They were becoming more ruthless, targeting entire cities and indiscriminately attacking civilian populations in an attempt to break the human spirit. The resistance was ready for this. "We've got to get the civilians out of harm's way," Ethan said, pacing in the strategy room with Maya by his side. "If the Empire's going to escalate their attacks, we can't afford to lose the people we're fighting for." Maya nodded, her face grim. "We'll move them into the safe zones, but we can't hide forever. We need to strike back, hit them where it hurts the most." Ethan's eyes glinted with determination. "We'll hit their fuel stations, take out their energy supply. If we cut off their power, we can cripple their operations." Within hours, Ethan's team was coordinating an assault on one of the Empire's key energy hubs. A group of human soldiers, led by Maya, had infiltrated a heavily guarded refinery. The Empire's troops were formidable, but they were not ready for the stealth and precision of Earth's fighters. Maya led the way, crouching low to avoid detection. She had never thought of herself as a warrior, but her training with the Resistance had transformed her into a skilled tactician. The humans were quiet as they moved through the facility, planting explosives at strategic locations. The Empire's guards had no idea what was coming. Then, in a silent explosion, the fuel refinery erupted in a violent fireball, sending shockwaves through the Empire's supply chain. Their ships were grounded, their vehicles disabled, and their operations ground to a halt. As the explosion lit up the night sky, Maya turned to Ethan, a satisfied grin spreading across her face. "That should slow them down." Ethan's face remained serious. "It's a start, but they'll be angry now. We've made them feel vulnerable." And that's exactly what they wanted. By striking the Empire where it hurt the most, they were sending a message. The humans weren't afraid. They weren't backing down. And no matter how desperate the Empire became, Earth was ready to fight back. Vrax, watching the destruction unfold from his command center, felt a deep pang of frustration. The Empire had been dealt a heavy blow. It wasn't just the loss of equipment, it was the realization that the humans had figured out how to fight back in ways the Empire had never expected. "Send reinforcements to the fuel depots," Vrax barked, "and send a message to the homeworld. We need more troops, more resources. I will not let these insignificant creatures defeat us." But as his orders were transmitted, Vrax couldn't shake the feeling that the balance was tipping. The humans were becoming more unpredictable, more dangerous. They were learning, adapting, and finding ways to strike at the heart of the Empire's operations. Ethan and Maya, along with their team, had sparked something larger than themselves. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight to prove that humanity was capable of standing up to the most powerful force in the galaxy. Back on Earth, the tide had officially started to turn. As the Empire continued to underestimate humanity's resolve, the resistance had begun to find its rhythm. It was no longer just about survival. It was about victory. The Empire had begun its invasion with the belief that nothing could stop them. But with every successful strike, humanity proved that they were far from the weak, fragile species the Empire had thought them to be. And with every day that passed, Vrax and the Empire grew more and more desperate. This battle, which had once seemed so one-sided, was becoming something else entirely. The Galactic Empire had made its greatest mistake. It had underestimated humanity. And now, Earth's defenders were preparing for the next phase of their fight. The true war for the fate of Earth had just begun. The Empire's last stand. The Empire's retreat from Earth was not going as smoothly as Vrax had anticipated. For the first time in his career, the invincible Empire was losing its grip on a world it had fought to conquer in a matter of days. And the humans, those primitive, insignificant beings, had something no invader could have foreseen: an unbreakable will to survive. Vrax paced relentlessly across the command bridge of the Dominion, his mind fraught with frustration. The reports kept coming: more losses, more human victories, more destruction. Each time they managed to secure a victory, the humans seemed to rally stronger, more prepared than before. How did they learn to fight this way? Vrax growled to his officers. "They've only had a few months to organize, yet they've already crippled half of our fleet." "How?" One of his officers, a seasoned strategist, hesitated. "Admiral, we're beginning to see patterns. The humans have been using guerrilla tactics, attacking our weakest points, then disappearing before we can respond. They're also using their knowledge of our technology against us." Vrax clenched his fists in rage. "They're nothing but pests. We should have wiped them out when we had the chance. What do we do now?" The officer's voice trembled slightly. "It might be time for drastic measures. Admiral, our forces are thinning out, and their resistance is growing. We could unleash the final weapon." Vrax's eyes narrowed. The Zorathan device. The Zorathan device was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a doomsday device capable of destroying entire continents with a single strike. The Empire had used it on countless worlds to quickly crush any resistance. It was their final tool for destruction when everything else failed. "I'll give the order," Vrax said, his voice cold. "The humans have pushed us too far. They will feel the full force of the Empire." But as Vrax prepared to launch the final assault, he couldn't help but feel a gnawing doubt in the back of his mind. The humans had surprised him time and time again, and something about their resilience made him hesitant to fully commit to such a destructive plan. Still, the Empire's pride would not allow him to back down. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ethan and Maya were once again deep in the heart of the Resistance's command center, coordinating their next move. They had no idea what the Empire was planning, but they knew one thing for certain: the war was about to escalate to a terrifying level. "We've been able to disrupt their communications once again," Maya reported, her voice focused. "But this time, they're not responding like they did before. I think they're planning something big, something that will change everything." Ethan's expression hardened. "The Zorathan device," he muttered. It's the Empire's ultimate weapon. They use it when they're desperate. Maya's eyes widened with realization. If they launch that thing, Earth is finished. We need to stop them. The thought of a weapon capable of destroying entire continents filled them both with dread, but they couldn't afford to waste time. The Empire had already shown how far they were willing to go to crush humanity. Now it was their turn to fight back. We need to find it, Ethan said, determination in his voice. We need to destroy it before they can use it. The resistance scrambled into action. The world's leaders and military forces were now united in their cause, fighting side by side against the overwhelming might of the Empire. With the threat of the Zorathan device hanging over them, the stakes had never been higher. But for the first time, they knew they had a chance, not just to survive, but to win. Ethan's team had spent weeks infiltrating Empire strongholds and gathering intelligence. And now, they had uncovered something crucial: the location of the Zorathan device. It was hidden in a heavily fortified Empire base deep within the Arctic Circle, protected by the strongest defense systems the Empire had. It would be nearly impossible to breach, but they didn't have the luxury of hesitation. "We've got one shot at this," Maya said, looking over the blueprints of the base. "We need to get in, destroy the weapon, and get out. Fast." Ethan nodded. "This will be our most dangerous mission yet, but we can't let the Empire succeed. If they launch that weapon, all our progress will be for nothing." The plan was set into motion. A small group of elite resistance fighters, including Ethan and Maya, would infiltrate the Empire's Arctic base under the cover of darkness. They would disable the facility's security, plant explosives in the heart of the base, and destroy the Zorathan device. The night before the mission, Ethan sat alone in the command center, staring at a map of Earth. It seemed surreal. They were about to face the Empire's most destructive weapon, and the fate of the entire planet rested on their shoulders. Maya walked over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We've come this far, Ethan. We can't stop now." Ethan looked up at her, his eyes filled with resolve. "We're not stopping until Earth is free. Tomorrow, we take the fight to them." The next day, under the cover of a fierce snowstorm, the resistance team launched their mission. Armed with the best technology and weapons humanity could muster, they approached the Arctic base. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the Empire's power, but they knew the odds were stacked against them. The facility was like a fortress, surrounded by ice and guarded by the Empire's finest troops. But Ethan and Maya were used to the impossible. They moved swiftly and silently, using every ounce of their training to avoid detection. As they neared the Zorathan device, they encountered resistance, but nothing they couldn't handle. Finally, they reached the heart of the base. There, encased in an impenetrable vault, lay the Zorathan device. It was a massive metallic structure, pulsating with dark energy. Maya and Ethan exchanged a glance before they set to work. "This is it," Maya whispered. "Let's end this." With precise movements, they activated the charges and prepared to destroy the weapon. The explosion would be massive, but it would be the only way to ensure the Empire's threat was neutralized for good. As the countdown began, Ethan felt a surge of hope. Hope that humanity's fight, despite everything, could still lead to victory, and with one final, earth-shattering blast, they would give everything to stop the Empire from ever threatening Earth again. The endgame was approaching. Would humanity triumph, or would the Empire's power prove insurmountable? Only time would tell. The Empire's collapse. The blinding light of the explosion echoed through the icy silence of the Arctic base. The Zorathan device was no more, reduced to a smoldering heap of twisted metal and charred remains. The resistance had succeeded in their mission. For the first time, it felt as if Earth's future was no longer in the hands of the Empire, but victory came at a heavy cost. As the team made their way out of the destroyed base, alarms blared, signaling that the Empire's remaining forces were mobilizing for a counterattack. They were furious. The destruction of their ultimate weapon had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, and the Empire's command structure had begun to crumble. Vrax's anger was palpable, and it was clear that the Empire would stop at nothing to erase this humiliating defeat. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The destruction of the Zorathan device was a turning point. The Resistance had finally struck a decisive blow against the Empire. But the fight was far from over. The Empire's forces, now scattered and disoriented, were still capable of great destruction. Ethan and Maya, along with their comrades, returned to the command center, exhausted but resolute. They knew that the Empire would try to regroup and strike back, but they also knew that the balance of power had shifted. "We've done it," Maya said quietly, her voice tinged with relief. "But we can't relax. The Empire's not going to give up that easily." Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the map of Earth displayed on the command center's wall. The Empire's remaining strongholds were still well fortified, and they knew that it would take everything they had to finally crush the invaders once and for all. "We have to finish what we started," Ethan said, determination hardening his voice. "The Empire's collapse is within reach. We can't let them rebuild." The final phase of the war was upon them. With the Empire's greatest weapon destroyed, the remaining forces were weakened and scattered. The Resistance had gained momentum, and the people of Earth had rallied together like never before. Military leaders from around the world joined forces with the Resistance, bringing their troops and resources to bear in a united front. Vrax, meanwhile, had retreated to his flagship, the Dominator, a massive warship orbiting above Earth. He was no longer the confident leader he once was. The loss of the Zorathan device had shattered the Empire's plan for swift domination, and now he was fighting for survival. "Admiral, we've lost contact with several of our fleets," one of his officers reported, his voice frail. "The humans have completely overwhelmed our remaining defense systems. The command structure is falling apart." Vrax stared out into space, his mind racing. Earth was slipping through his fingers. He had underestimated these humans, but now the consequences of his arrogance were clear. "Prepare the fleet," Vrax ordered, his voice cold. "We will make our final stand here. The humans may have destroyed our weapon, but they will not destroy the Empire." Back on Earth, the Resistance was preparing for a final confrontation. The battle lines had been drawn, and the stage was set for the ultimate clash. Ethan, Maya, and their allies were ready. They knew that this would be their last chance to ensure that Earth would never again face the Empire's wrath. "We've got one final push ahead of us," Ethan said as he addressed the Resistance. "If we fail, everything we fought for will be lost. But if we succeed, we'll show the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." The final assault began with a coordinated strike against the Empire's remaining strongholds. Earth's forces, bolstered by the intelligence and tactics of the Resistance, moved with unparalleled precision. The Empire's defenses were still formidable, but they were no match for the humans' ingenuity and unity. In the skies above, the Dominator prepared to unleash its final assault. Vrax was determined to make Earth's defenders pay for their defiance, but the Resistance had a plan of their own. Ethan and Maya, leading a team of elite fighters, infiltrated the Empire's flagship. They were going to make sure that Vrax's reign ended where it had begun, on the ship that had once been the symbol of the Empire's power. As they snuck through the corridors of the Dominator, Maya's voice was a whisper in Ethan's ear. "This is it. We're going for the heart of their command." Ethan gave her a brief nod. "We're finishing this, once and for all." The two of them moved swiftly, dodging guards and security measures as they made their way toward the bridge. With every step, the tension grew. They could feel the weight of the fate of the entire planet hanging over them. The Empire had shown no mercy to humanity. Now, it was time for humanity to return the favor. When they reached the control room, the doors slid open, and there stood Vrax. The once mighty leader of the Galactic Empire looked diminished. His pride had been shattered, and his forces had been decimated. Yet he still wore the same arrogant expression, as though he were invincible. "You've come this far, but you're too late." Vrax spat, his voice dripping with venom. "The Empire cannot fall. I will make sure of it." Ethan stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "The Empire is finished. Vrax, you can't stop what's already in motion. You failed. You underestimated humanity." With a sudden movement, Ethan and Maya launched their assault, using every weapon at their disposal to disable the ship's controls and neutralize the remaining Empire officers. The final battle was brutal, but it was clear that the humans had the upper hand. Vrax, cornered and defeated, realized too late that the fight was over. The Empire, once a galaxy-spanning force of unimaginable power, was crumbling before him. With the destruction of the Dominator, the last of the Empire's military might was snuffed out. The survivors scattered into the void, their dreams of conquering Earth shattered forever. As Ethan and Maya stood amidst the ruins of the Empire's flagship, they knew that the war had finally come to an end. Earth had won. The Empire had made its fatal error. It had underestimated humanity. And now, the galaxy would never forget the cost of that mistake. Humanity had triumphed. A new dawn. The Empire's defeat was swift, brutal, and final. Across the galaxy, word spread that Earth, once thought weak and vulnerable, had not only survived the Empire's most vicious onslaught, but had crushed it completely. The Galactic Empire, which had once dominated countless worlds, was no more. In its place, a new era of humanity had begun. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as people of every nation came together in unity. The once divided world was now united under the banner of freedom. The threat that had loomed over them for so long was gone, and humanity stood tall, having proven its strength to the galaxy. But Ethan and Maya knew that the work was far from over. The Empire had been shattered, but its influence still lingered. While Earth was free, there were still remnants of the Empire's forces scattered throughout the galaxy, and the power vacuum left behind was sure to cause instability. Humanity had to remain vigilant, or risk facing a new threat from within. As the leaders of Earth gathered for the first global summit, Ethan and Maya found themselves standing at the heart of the new government, helping to shape the future of a united planet. It was a world unlike any they had known before, one where old rivalries had been put aside for the common good, and the lessons learned in the war against the Empire were being used to build something better. "This is just the beginning," Ethan said, his eyes fixed on the horizon from the window of the summit hall. "We've proven that humanity has the strength to stand on its own, but the real challenge is what comes next. We need to be ready for anything." Maya nodded beside him. "We've seen how quickly things can change. One mistake, one miscalculation, and everything we've worked for could fall apart. But together, we can make sure that doesn't happen. We'll keep our guard up, and we'll be ready." Across the globe, military and scientific leaders worked tirelessly to safeguard Earth's future. Technology that had once been used by the Empire was now repurposed for humanity's benefit. Space exploration, once a distant dream for many, was now a reality. The scars of war were still fresh, but there was a sense of hope in the air, a belief that humanity had earned the right to explore the stars without fear of domination. Ethan and Maya had seen the worst that the Empire had to offer, but they had also witnessed the strength of the human spirit. In the darkest moments of the war, when all seemed lost, it was that spirit that had turned the tide. The belief that no one, no matter how powerful, could ever truly subdue humanity's will to fight for freedom. As the leaders of Earth took their seats at the summit table, a new voice joined them, a voice that spoke of peace, prosperity, and a future free from the shadows of tyranny. "I never thought I'd see the day when Earth stood united," the new global leader said, a smile spreading across their face. "We've won the war, but now, it's time to build something even more powerful, a future where no one ever has to suffer under the heel of an empire again." Ethan and Maya exchanged a glance, both of them silently agreeing on one thing. The fight was far from over. But for the first time, it felt like they were on the right side of history. The Empire's fatal error had been underestimating humanity's power, and in the end, that error had cost them everything. As the summit began, and the world looked toward a new future, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. Humanity was no longer just a planet to be conquered. It was a force to be reckoned with. And no one would ever forget the day the terrifying humans took a stand. The story of Earth's victory over the Empire would be told for generations to come, a testament to the strength, resilience, and unbreakable will of humanity. For the first time in history, the galaxy would know the truth. Never underestimate humanity.